Today on Metaphysical Mississippi, we have Sarah Scarchilli. She's a psychic medium. She was born with spiritual gifts, but she did not desire to holistically own them or practice her abilities until her 30s. Now in her 40s, she works with spiritual energies daily. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Metaphysical Mississippi. I'm your host, Emily, and of course, our other co-host, Krista. And today we have Sarah Scarchilli. How you doing, Sarah?
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes. So, I don't know much. We've only met once or twice, maybe at a meetup, but I do know a little of the giftings that you have shared, that you are a psychic medium. And I'd love for you to get into that. And also, when did you first connect with Metaphysical Mississippi? And maybe you can start it off by telling, when was the first time you said, what was that? Things are different. When did your spiritual awakening, when did you become aware of it?
That's a great question. So, I think for many of us who are gifted with spirit and divine energy and light filled, we always at some point have just felt different. There's just something about innately knowing that you are different. There's just something about it. Like, it's a gut feeling for me. It's always been a gut feeling for me. I knew that I was different from a very, very young age. My mom tells me this story. I was in preschool, probably like 3 or 4. And I lived in upstate New York at the time. That's where I was born. And a little girl had gone missing. And one night my mom was putting me to bed and it was late. And I was talking to somebody upstairs in my bedroom, and she tucked me in. She heard me talking to somebody. She came back up and said, "Sarah, it's time to go to bed. You need to go to bed." And I said, "Oh, I'm talking with my friend." And she said, "Well, who is it?" And I said her name, and it was the same name of the little girl had gone missing. And my mom had a moment of, my mom was also very gifted, an incredible psychic, and not formally practicing the way that I am today, but very gifted. And she didn't poo-poo the woo-woo, as we say in our community. She held space for me and asked me a lot of questions. And I was able to describe her physically. I remember her being like brown hair, brown eyes. We were the same age. And that's when my mom knew that something was a little bit different. And we had not talked about that story in a long time. And then it had popped up in the, I don't know, past 5-8 years again. But there's just things that I knew when I'd walk into places, that I would know about people, or I'd get feelings about things. And I just thought that everybody felt that. But I never talked about it with anybody, because why would you do that? It's kind of strange. To know things, or to hear things, or to feel things, but also to hear voices that are not yours. Because for a lot of people in our community, and I think all over the globe, we think that when we hear voices, we tend to think that somebody is not mentally okay, that their mental health is not intact. Yeah. And for some people, I think that is the truth. But for folks like me, it's very much just a part of my gifting, and I do hear things and I do feel things innately. So that's kind of how I've just always known that something was always different. I never quite felt like I fit into the crowd growing up, and I didn't quite feel like I fit in really anywhere until I moved here from Massachusetts to Mississippi.
Sarah, I have a quick question.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever asked you this. So when you hear a voice, when you hear voices, or feel like can you immediately know that it's not an incarnate, third dimensional? Does that voice sound different to you than me talking to you?
Yes, and it does sound different. It's a great question. It does sound different sometimes. Sometimes I have to check in with myself, and I can have the ability, as all humans do, to ask themselves series of questions. I do believe that all humans have the ability to be psychic. Mediumship is a little bit different. It's a gift to me, as if an athlete has a gift, or an artist has a gift in painting, or a musician has a gift. Those are all different components or different threads of giftings. I do feel like that that connection that I have is different. Sometimes the voices sound differently. Sometimes they come with a very strong sense of knowing in my physical body, or connected to a very strong emotion. And that's how I know the difference, that it's not my ego or my Sarah self or my humanness who hears it, but it is in fact the connection that I have to a different place, the things that we cannot physically see with human eyes, but we can see pieces of with human eyes. So yes, it is a little bit different. It's a good question.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, when is it how do you differentiate between your intuition voice
Mm-hmm.
and so.
And that's taken a long time to cultivate. That doesn't, the hearing sometimes is so profound and so intense with the emotion behind it. That's how I really know. But that's taken a long time in my own practice to understand that that's also how my physical body reacts to when I receive message. So the two work in tandem together. When I receive message from source, it connects with my soul, and my physical body has can have a reaction. But that's also something that I've had to learn, and I keep learning as I move through my practice, that my body is my communication tool, and how does it communicate with my soul, and vice versa, back and forth, so that I am constantly checking to make sure that it is coming from a different place and it's not my emotional humanness.
Do they sometimes I get a nagging, like a nag, but mine is more I may be connecting to, which is a new terminology for me, my higher self. You know, to like do something, like there's something I'm you know, let's just say I'm looking for a job and I get a nagging, ooh, I need to, you know, apply for that job, and it keeps nagging. You are learning with your how to differentiate the nagging of your higher self to the nagging of an spirit that is unrest that needs you to do something. Is that,
Mm-hmm.
you know how to differentiate that?
Yeah, that's also a great question. So my question back to you would be, does the nagging go away?
Right. Maybe once I do it.
And
Yeah.
yes, and so if the nagging doesn't go away, the somebody, something, some energy is trying to get your attention to give you a message. That's the innate part of being human that connects to being psychic. We don't talk about it in terms of being psychic because it's scary, but it's when somebody, you walk into a room and you know somebody was just talking about you, or you have a thought to call your sister and she calls you first. Right? Or you have a connection to your child and you know that something isn't quite right, so you call them because you know that something is not okay. That's energy, right? And so the nagging that you're feeling is a message. There is a component in that. We can choose, our humanness can make choices because we have free will. So just because we receive a message doesn't mean we have to act on the message. But sometimes when the message is profound and it needs to be coming across as a lesson or something that we would be in our highest good to take advantage of, it won't go away. It's also like emotion. Emotion gets stuck when we don't address the emotion. It will keep coming back. The fear will keep coming back until we address it. So it doesn't have, it can have that grip on us until we say, hey, I hear you, I see you, I feel you. And then when you can relate to it, it might dissipate. But if we don't listen, if we don't wait for the message with that nagging, it might dull down a little bit, but I guarantee you will come back again and again and wait for it again.
So is it like when you were younger, in your preschool years, is it that you had, like, you were tuned, you had your radio on, you were tuned in, and the girl was broadcasting, and you just, even though you've never met her, you picked up on her broadcast. Because
I mean, I'm assuming to be able to talk to myself at that point.
Yeah.
I would imagine. So the thing about children, you guys, is that and this is something I've learned through readings with multiple people all over the place. When you hold a newborn baby, what is your first emotional reaction?
Oh.
Wonder, well, just love. I just want to just
Right,
eat them
love,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
you can become, like most humans, adults become very emotional when they hold a newborn baby, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because their light source is like the purest it could possibly be. Because the first time that a baby, a fetus, receives trauma is in the womb from mom, right? And then the major trauma that a child receives is childbirth, because nobody comes out laughing, right?
Oh, that's
All
true.
babies are like, "Wah!" and they get scared and they cry, right? That's their first trauma. That's their first major emotional trauma that their soul has experienced in that lifetime. When you and I pick up a newborn baby, their trauma is like this, where ours is like this, because we have had so much emotional experience as humans. So when we put that baby on our chest, my first emotion always is to cry, because what we're receiving is the light, the soul's light that has just been passed through that mother. And receiving that light source is so incredibly profound, right? And that feeling is so, so, so intense. So children don't have a lot of junk, emotional trauma, crap, right? The emotional stuff that gets stuck in the body. The light source is enormous. And because their light source is enormous, we feel that. We don't understand exactly what it is. I mean, I know now that's what it is. It's light source from divine. It's our God-given gift. It's what makes up all sentient beings, the light that exists in humans and people and animals and plants. We have that oneness, that connection. So what we're feeling is that oneness from that newborn baby, that raw sense of unconditional love from source. So when we're children and we have less trauma and less emotion built up in the physical body, our receptors are wide open because the logical brain has not taken over as much. To tell us that we're not, like as we get older, we're thinking to ourselves, oh gosh, that's so silly, why would I think that, right? But we receive messages all the time. Children don't have those innate blockers yet, because their ego is not as strong. They don't have as much emotional trauma to create those ego layers outside of what the light source is. The light source is here. The trauma creates these ego layers, and as adults we become hardened. But children are soft because their light source is so big, because they're not filled with such emotion. Isn't that beautiful?
It is.
No wonder I like kids. I've always wondered why I like kids so much.
Right. It's because we feel that connection to their soul.
That is beautiful.
And the gift of being alive.
So I have another question about the hearing. I don't know why I'm curious about it. Well, yeah, I do, but when do you ever have, and I want us to get back to your origin story, but I want to ask this. As a medium, do you ever hear a voice talking to you, and it's not through your third eye, but it's actually through your ear? They're over there in the corner. They're making an audible voice like a live human being would, and then you look.
Sometimes,
yeah.
Sometimes, yes. So, I have as mediums, one of the things that we really need to do is protect our energy as we walk through life, because if we constantly, I think of I have a sign up here, and it's either open, closed, or in neutral, right? So when my sign is up and it's open, and I'm like, for example, if I walked into the grocery store and my sign was open, holy moly, I get hit,
You don't get
not
talked
necessarily
to.
with the hearing, but mostly the feelings. I have part of my gifting is I feel people's feelings intensely. I feel emotion intensely. I can understand people's fear. The basis of all negative human emotion is fear. Conversely, the light source and the biggest emotion, positive emotion, is unconditional love. And unconditional love, I think, comes from a place of source, from divine, from God, universe, spirit, Allah, Jesus, Moses, whoever you want to call that source, to me is all one and the same. Humans quantify those things and put labels on them. That's how I feel it and see it. To me, it's the oneness. It's all about unconditional love. So the unconditional love part is what we would want to receive, to achieve, right? But none of us, as humans, we live in fear. And now I've completely forgotten your question because I was talking about emotions. Oh, I know what it was.
Yeah.
So I feel people's emotions sometimes faster and receive that initially. And then I feel because my body's my communication tool, I often feel symptoms of their passing. For some people though, like yesterday, I got my hair cut by our friend Russell, and I was there, and I met a new person in the salon, and I got hit with the feeling of the passing, a symptom of the passing, and then I got hit rawly with the emotion. I started to cry. So the feelings I get, the knowing I get, are some of my strongest abilities. And then I do hear, but I also see words, or I see video clips, like short little clips of things. Mostly it's just the knowing, but I do hear sometimes. Sometimes people are like literally are across the room, like, hey, I'm here, like at work during the day. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Stores are the worst. Walmart and Target are the worst. I have to turn off my my clothes sign. And sometimes their energy is so big and so bold that they really don't respect that or know how to respect that. So sometimes I have to come back and say, no, I'm not reading anymore. This is not the time for me to be in that space. I need to be human right now.
So
Right.
have you mistakenly just blurted that out while you were in Target? Like, no.
No. Can you imagine? Who is this crazy lady who comes to me? I'm sorry, but your dead grandmother is on your right side of your body and she wants to give you a message. No. I mean, if you think about like how that works on television, like I love Teresa Caputo, but all of that is staged. I mean, anybody who walks into the grocery store that she has signed a release form, and they're all walking around the store hoping that she's going to stop them, because they've all agreed to be there in that store in that present time to receive a reading from her. They have given her permission to gain a reading. That's how the television works. No, it doesn't work like that in real life. Now, do I feel that? Absolutely. Does it hit me out of nowhere sometimes? Absolutely. Do I get overwhelmed with emotion? Absolutely, because that's just part of my gifting. When that energy connects with mine, I feel that intrinsically. So I will know. And in my mind's eye and in my heart and through my heart chakra, I can send out just an intent of love and connection and that oneness that I feel, but I don't cross that boundary. It's not, some people are not ready to hear that. And especially dealing in the deep south, they're going to think I've lost my marbles. I have not lost my marbles.
Or you're working for the devil. But
oh yeah, look, I'm a recovering Catholic. I know how that works.
Yeah. Yes. So we'll get back to part of Emily's original question. Back to your origin story you shared with us from your childhood. And are you like a lot of people that you hit your early teens and you kind of just through all that? Did it stay with you through your teens and early adult, or
absolutely? Because I was way too busy being a teenager and a human and feeling all my teenage shit, right? Your hormones are all over the place, and then your emotions get really big, and everything about you at that moment in time is about you, because that's the way the brain develops. You don't hit that last stride of brain development really doesn't start to form in with your reasoning until you're in your early 20s. I work with college students and I'm telling them all the time, you are supposed to make mistakes right now. You're supposed to make decisions that might not be for your best and highest good. I'm not saying that you made a good decision, but you know, part of what you're doing right now is working with what you've got, which is that your brain is not fully formed. So, you know, these things take time.
And we ask a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-olds. It'd say, what do you want to do for the rest of your life?
The craziest question you could ever ask an unformed brain. Like, is that reasonable?
I know.
I mean, if I asked either of you, what do you guys want to do when you grow up? Nobody really has an answer. I don't have any. All I know is that this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. I want to be in a space where I am connected to source, that I'm connected to my gifting, that I am providing people with messages that are for their highest good, whether it be psychically with their energy or with their loved ones through a mediumistically, and or if it's literally just reading people's emotions to help them understand what they're feeling in their physical body and humanly, and how to try to balance between living a life of spirituality and connection and being human and straddling that fence, that duality back and forth. That's a lot of what my practice is about with a lot of women. For a lot of women, I find that, because I work mostly with women, I have a handful of male clients, but mostly women, is that we get into the space in the late 30s and early 40s, and we're like, that's it. This is bullshit. Like, I'm so tired of feeling prickly, right? Because everything that you've ever been told or taught as a woman might not be aligning with what you're feeling. I mean, I know that happened to me. I went to college. I got my degree. I went to grad school. I have a master's degree. I got married. I had children. I have 3 beautiful children. I took care of 3 beautiful children. I took care of a sick husband for a while. I lost myself. I put my career on hold. I was an extreme empath and felt everybody else's crap, and then was numb to my own feelings for the longest time. And I hated myself. Like, I was in a place where I was so prickly, I didn't even want to be in my own skin. And that is often a story I hear for a lot of people when they reach the capacity in which their body, the physical container, is so filled with fear, because that's where all negative emotion starts from. The body starts to spew. We get passive aggressive, we get angry, we get anxious and depressed, and we don't behave the way that we want to innately behave, right? Because we're just so caught up in all the day-to-day mundane have to, shoulds, and all those things. And so for a lot of people, when they get to that space, they know something has to give, because life doesn't feel bearable because you're so filled with negative emotion. That was me. And it wasn't until my late 30s and my sister got me on board and said, hey, I need you to start healing with me. Oh. And for a while I resisted, and all of my fuck yous were saying fuck you, blazing fuck yous. And then eventually the blazing fuck yous, I turned that into thank yous, because I realized that I was so prickly that if I didn't do this for myself, I couldn't be available to anybody else.
Oh.
So
yeah.
So yes, awakenings happening at those times a lot and frequently for a lot of women and men too.
How old were your children at the time when you started turning into thank yous?
Oh gosh, I mean, girl, that took a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've, my fuck yous started when my son was about, 5. So, dealing with things.
And that's, and I just want to acknowledge the fuck you versus thank you, because that's a big part of my practice. So, I mean, I know, like, culturally speaking, the word fuck to me is a really powerful word, and I use it a lot because it is so powerful. I personally, I don't trust people who don't use language and mean it. So if I'm saying the word fuck, I'm not saying it just to be like flippant or annoying or a badass. Like, there's a reason. Fuck has very powerful meaning, positively, negatively, and neutrally, right? So in terms of this practice, fuck you for me is me being in my emotions and being really, really scared about something. When I am saying fuck you in my head routinely, it's because I am afraid of something. And I know that my ego has been flared because my emotions are so big. So this is a practice I use a lot of the time when I read for people. When your fuck yous are big, you've got to check yourself, right? So slowly we turn from fuck you into thank you. Fuck you is like, you can say that to yourself, you can say that to other people, and we're not necessarily expressing it through language with our voice, but we're feeling it inside the physical body and we're saying it in our mind's eye. Right? You have to, the whole point is you have to sit in your fuck yous because you have to feel your feelings. If you don't allow yourself to feel your feelings, your fuck yous are only going to get bigger and you're going to sit in your shit for a long time. And it's going to feel more and more and more uncomfortable. So when we can look at a situation where we have felt like our fuck yous are raging, and we can eventually start to see the silver lining of the lessons in which we need to learn, how do we take responsibility for our behavior? How do we take responsibility for our actions? What can we learn from a situation? And then when we start to learn and transition, that's when you can come to a place of gratitude to say, thank you. Genuinely, thank you for teaching me in this moment that that situation came up for a reason. And it was supposed to teach me something, and it had contextual value and emotional value. That transition is big. It's not easy to do. You can sit in your fuck yous and your shit for a long time. You know, I allow myself a couple of days most times. And then I'm like, all right, Sarah, get your shit together and get to thank you. What are the things that you need to be grateful for? What are the things that you're supposed to be learning in this moment? How can you give gratitude back out so that you come back to your light source and find that light within?
How long does it stay? Let's just say there's another little level in there between the fuck yous and the thank yous.
There is.
But where you feel victimed.
Yes, of
like
course. Victim is a huge part of your fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how do you get past the darn, why did I let that happen so long?
Yes, well, and then there's a whole component of like, do I like beating yourself up because you sat there for too long?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
It's an emotional roller coaster.
The beat ups.
Yes. Yes, because you get into your conscious mind comes into play. You get on a hamster wheel, you start talking negatively to yourself, right? And so how do you jump off the hamster wheel? Well, being in nature is a beautiful way to break that cycle for me. Walking is something that I do regularly to break that cycle, to help me. Calling a friend, walking with a friend, meditation, coming back to breath, focusing on the exhalation of the cycle of breath. I teach a lot of people how to move emotion through the body with breath and how to feel it in the physical body. It's a really important part of my practice. Even meditation or breathing for 5 minutes, even if you just give yourself 5 minutes, is a gift. It's a place to start. Even if you're so prickly that all you can do is focus on your breath, that's a win. What are some other things? Writing is another way to do that. Writing letters to people that you will never send. Writing letters to yourself. Connecting with source in that way to channel that energy and the emotion. I'll work with a lot of clients sometimes when they've got relationships that are intense, mostly with their moms or people in their families, and they need to get the emotion out, the raw emotion out. So writing a letter to them with several different versions of a letter over a period of time helps give out the biggest fuck yous to be able to turn it towards the gratitudes. Instead of being angry at somebody and saying, you did this to me, which is victim mode.
Right.
Thank you for teaching me. That's gratitude. That's thank you. So
you do it through a letter because you possibly can't really do it to their face. But
I never suggest lashing out at somebody to their face. It only makes you feel like shit afterwards.
Right.
Right. And it makes you've just like literally blamed out all your crap onto somebody else.
Yes.
And the fact is that
go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead.
You're responsible for your own energy. You and I and the three of us are responsible for our own set of emotions. That's the challenge as we become adults, is we can make a choice whether we allow somebody's emotions to interfere with our auric field or not. We have the choice to be able to say, I'm going to stay in my lane. That's their stuff. It's not mine. That's a really difficult lesson to learn. And I think all humans will continue to learn that in a cycle of life. I don't think anybody fully masters that because we're human. We have four things in common. We're born, we live, we die, and we all have emotions. It's the emotional component of who we are that we don't talk enough about. We talk about birth. We talk about the day-to-day mundane living. We talk about dying, but we don't talk about the emotions that are embedded in all three of those components of being a human being. Go ahead.
No, I just had a quick question about, I don't know anything really about auras and all that, but
oh yeah,
aura field.
Auric field, yep.
Auric field. How big do you set your own, or what is that?
That's a great question.
I mean,
so I have you guys watched The Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
Okay. Glinda, the good witch, comes down in her translucent bubble, right?
Oh, yes.
That is her auric field.
Oh.
You see the metaphor?
Yes.
I love that movie so much because there's so many, somebody channeled components of that movie over and over and over again. That was just not made up in somebody's head. That was created and channeled with message and a little bit of humanness, don't get me wrong. But that movie has so many beautiful metaphors about living life, right? About light and dark, and being true and inherent to yourself, right? And listening to your wisdom and coming home, which is about coming back to yourself and coming back to your light and finding yourself, reclaiming your God-given gifts, right? So Glinda shows up in that beautiful bubble. It's iridescent. It's how she travels. It's how she keeps herself safe, right? It's how she like literally puts a bubble of light around her physical being. That's a field. That's an auric field to me. And we all have a bubble. We don't necessarily walk around in a circle. It could be a sphere, but it could be like more of like a blob. It could be more of like an oval shape. But we all have one. It's literally the energetic field. Everything is energy. Our physical bodies are energy. Our thoughts are energy. The coffee mug that I have in here is energy. And so how big do we want our energy to be, or how open and available do we want to have our energetic field be? So if you're walking around with an energetic field that's open, wide open, especially as an empath, you're going to feel everybody else's shit. And then what ends up happening is that you become numb to yourself because you're so busy dealing with everybody else's crap that you forget to know what you're feeling. Right?
Oh,
so a part of a practice is to pull in your auric field so that you don't have to feel, and you ask, you literally set the intention. My auric field is going to keep me safe. I'm going to pull it in close. And I teach people how to do that because there are like 3 main ways to pull in or push out your auric field that I have received in my practice. And your auric field, like when I go into Walmart or the grocery store, I pull that thing in real tight. Because I don't want to feel the lady next to me and all of her sadness because it's not mine. Right? So the auric field allows us literally in a bubble to keep our emotions and our physical body and our energy safe or wide open. Right now, my auric field is wide open because I feel safe and comforted and loved, and with both of you. And I want to be able to share some of the things that I've learned through my connection. So my field is open. And I feel your fields are being open too, because you're asking really meaningful, powerful questions. So the field is important part of a spiritual practice. It's a part of a human practice that we don't necessarily talk about or teach others how to push it out or pull it in. Mm-hmm. But it is a very valuable tool in protection.
So in your home, with your loved ones, how long did it take you to realize that sometimes you have to put up that shield around them too?
Oh, amen, sister.
Oh, that's
especially with teenagers.
Learning. Oh,
yes, especially with teenagers, because they become a little, they can be little vacuums sometimes because they need you.
Yeah.
So in my home, I have in all 4 corners of my home, I have a little box with crystals in it, and I have set intention. So all 4 corners of my house I sort of see it as like an overarching to the home. I've also been attuned to Sarah from angel energy, and I have gridded my house with protection and angelic light. So that's something else that I do too.
So you
In
use
terms,
tangible objects.
yes, I have selenite wands above all of my door frames. So whenever you come in and out of my house, it helps clear the energy. I have that stone and wands in my windowsills above everybody's bedroom door and the main doors of the house. My home is my safe space and my children's safe space. And sometimes everybody's emotions can get big and bold, but that's also part of being human, right? But the cool thing about my home and my children's friends and any friends that I have come in have always said, I feel so good in here. That is like one of the most beautiful, profound compliments, that people feel safe to be in my home. And that to me is a reflection of the energy that I want to provide as a giver. And as my children learn to come and grow into their gifting, their light becomes stronger because we practice sometimes together, and to be able to share that and spread that. So yeah, your house is a really big deal, and their emotions are a big deal, and the energy can shift from day to day based on everybody's emotions inside your home. So I sage regularly. In fact, I had a reading this morning, and my oldest daughter gets up and she goes, "Oh, I love the smell of sage, Mom." They know I'm in practice when the sage starts going, or that I need to like really open up the house and clear it out. Opening your windows, opening your doors is another way to clean your house. Physically cleaning your house is a good way to move energy. Getting rid of objects that no longer serve, that are just holding space, that no longer have a happy meaning or value to them. Getting rid of that is really important too. Everything holds energy.
Now, do you practice, do you feng shui your house, or you just don't use that same, it's not labeled that?
Yeah, I don't label that per se, but if it doesn't feel good energetically, it's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like I have had, so I recently got divorced, and a lot of the items that were still left over in my home, over time, I have been able, if I can find a replacement for them, that's what I've been doing recently. That energy just needs to go, because it needs to all be mine or my children's energy in my home. And that's only because I'm stepping into feeling my own power. It's nothing to do with any negativity necessarily left over from my past, but it's about me owning my space for just Sarah and then my children. It's powerful when you can hold on to that and reclaim that space and light and objects with energy for yourself. It's healing. It's a really beautiful healing component to that.
Are you, well, when you're working, you do some work there within your home?
I do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mostly read for people over Zoom, and all over the country.
Oh, wonderful. So, so you have all those, you say, so you protect everything. So okay. Go on, Chris.
Oh, well, this could take us in another thing, but something you said earlier, because I agree. I think fear is at the root of everything. But I feel like we came to this earth or in this existence to experience both the positive and the negative, and fear is part of the human experience on this planet.
Agreed.
And so I feel like the fuck you and the thank you is a way to learn how to let fear serve you. How can the fear be part of our evolution and our growth? And frankly, there are times where fear does have a place. It keeps us from walking off the cliff. It keeps us
Agreed.
from sticking our hand in the fire.
Yes, exactly.
But I think when the traumas build up on each other over and over again, and we don't learn how to process and let go of trauma, it becomes so compact that we can't even, I don't know what I was trying to say. The fear becomes so, in such a dense form that we can't pick it apart in order
Right.
to process
Right. And then it gets
in a
stored in the
healthy
subconscious
way.
brain.
Yeah.
Yes, it gets
Yeah.
stored, and then the subconscious brain like puts it in a box with locks and duct tape and chains and do not touch, do not, war zone, do not open, keep
And I think
closed.
for me, the way I feel things right now is to try to create a life or an existence where I have no fear is not realistic.
I would agree.
The question is, what do I do with that fear? How do I
Correct.
process it? How do I let it guide me? Not guide
Mhm.
me in that it keeps me, oh, I'm just going to sit here in my bubble,
Right.
stay
Right.
away from everybody. Or can we use fear? Can we use those negative experiences to actually, and we can, because that's what you
Yes.
say. You start with the fuck you always leads. If we're on our path and we're processing, it always
Correct.
leads to the thank you.
Correct. And for some people, they don't know how to get out. They stay stuck and fuck you. And some people's fear is so gross that they don't even know how to ask for help. That's a real thing. And for those people out there who might be in that space, it can start with a text to somebody. It can start with a phone call to somebody. It can start with a post on Facebook or Instagram and say, I need help. I just want to make sure that people know that there are so many human beings out there who want to be of service in that way, to be a kind ear, a safe space, to be able to share authentically, openly, and honestly. That's truly what my sessions are about. I want people to know that nobody has ever, with I think probably the only human thing that I can feel to have judgment truly on, like really big negative judgment, is if somebody hurt somebody physically on purpose or killed somebody. That would be like,
Yeah.
that to me is like, you strip somebody else of their free will. But
Oh, yeah.
when people come and talk about their most genuinely strong fears, they are talking to me about them, or I'm reading them because they're allowing me to be in their space to give them feedback. That is one of the most profound things about fear, is being vulnerable. When you are vulnerable enough to acknowledge the fear, instead of hiding from it or hiding from the world that you don't have fear, which is a bunch of bullshit. Everybody has fear. That's when you can acknowledge it, and it doesn't have a grip on you the same way that it would if you never addressed it. If you never literally looked fear on the face and said, I don't care. I love that phrase from Pink, in one of her songs. Fear is and can be gripping. The human experience allows our free will to decide if, when, how, when, where, why we want to reach out to others to talk about it, to address it. And like I said, some people, it's really too much to address it. And I acknowledge that for
Art
those
has to be
people.
addressed in layers, a little bit at a time. And
It does. And so fear is like, I'm glad you said that, because fear to me is like layers of an onion, right? So I'm going to turn my chair a little bit. Your soul, to me, this is your heart space. This is where your light exists. Okay. As we become older, we talked about an infant being all light source, pretty much, with like the tiniest of trauma, right? As we become adults, we have trauma layers, incidences, things that have happened to us. It could be as simple as a child, your mom told you out of her own fear, don't touch the hot stove. And you don't listen because you need to experience it, because your little sensory system is saying, try it, try it, try it. And then you try it and you burn yourself and you cry. And then your mom says, I told you not to do that. Well, that just created a trauma, because now you feel ashamed that you didn't listen to your mom and you had to try it. So there's guilt and there's shame surrounding that, right? And the fear is, I didn't know, or the fear is I didn't trust, or the fear is I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard, whatever the fear is, right? But those fears create layers. And as we create layers, we get further away from our light source. And so part of my work is helping people reduce the space in between the soul and all those onion layers of fear, to reduce them, so that what ends up happening is the fear reduces, but then there creates more space for the light to shine through, so that you can actually live a life where it's easier to get to thank you versus sitting in fuck you. Does that make sense?
And you know what, Sarah? And you know what? You know, it's not that we're trying to get to the light, that we're some dark lost soul trying to get to the
We
light.
already have it
We
in
are
there.
the light. Like we are. It's the uncovering.
Yes.
The
But when
light
you
that we
know, when you meet
are.
somebody and you can feel them and you can feel their joy, because that person has been doing their work and trying to reduce those traumas so that they shine brighter.
Mhm. Well, let me ask you about this. Let's go back to that person you mentioned a minute ago. The person who does hurt people or kill people or have hate. You know, that's all out of fear too. That
Oh, a whole heck of
that
a lot of
react
fear.
and
I would
you
imagine
know,
that person never felt loved, appreciated, seen, heard, right? And I also believe that there is karmic dust left over from previous lifetimes. So there could have been lessons that were not fully resolved, that we carry from us in a past life. Look, here's what I know. The physical body dies. It has a lifetime. You and I and the three of us are experiencing a lifetime in this moment. Our soul doesn't die. The soul it never dies. So a couple of ways that I know this. I've read for many, many mamas who have lost babies. We call them babies, right? In utero. The reason why that soul didn't stay was because it got called back for another purpose, and or it was missing a component of humanness, of emotion that it needed to feel. It was incomplete. The soul was incomplete. Souls don't die. They just move on. And so that can happen. And or our free will as women can decide. We can decide whether to hold on to a pregnancy or not. That soul doesn't die. It goes back. But we have the ability to have a free will. We can make choices. If we didn't have the ability to make choices, we wouldn't be human. And we would all be following one script. Souls don't know time, energy, money, finances, politics, gender. Souls only know souls. That's it.
So is the soul, I just Googled what soul was. I throw that term around all the time, you know. So what is our soul? Is our soul that thing that's part of source, or that's the energy of the universe, or
I think it's all of it. I think it's soul is like a blob to me. Like it's literally like a working, flowing blob that literally right now is renting my human body. It's renting your human body. When my physical body dies, my soul goes back up to what you and I have been told is heaven, and I know is a different dimension. It's a different place where humans don't necessarily see, but I can see and I can feel and I know because it's part of my gifting. But the soul doesn't die. And then when the soul leaves the physical body and goes back home, it goes through a process of, it collects data. Like a soul is like a mega computer, and holds on to things and lessons from previous lives. And if the karmic dust is left over, it means that the lesson hasn't been learned in the previous life, and now it's coming back again. And it might not be something we can heal from a soul level. It needs to be healed and dealt with on a human level. And then it can go back up again and cycle again. Sometimes souls don't come back down as humans. Sometimes souls reincarnate in different ways. They can be a plant or an animal. Sometimes souls don't come back down, but they go up. meaning that they have lived and learned enough to transcend that next dimension and become angelic. That happens too. And then when they become angelic, they can still come back down into teaching us into a human space, but we have to be open. Our vessel has to be open. Our light can connect, but our humanness and our ego layers have to be a little bit smaller so we have more room so our light sources can connect. If it stays small and hidden, it's harder to connect with.
And so then there's the concept, which I just barely have just been introduced or heard of it, but the whole concept of soul family, or the concept of generational
Yep.
I like to say
lineage.
Generational curses, but I can't.
Oh yeah.
Karmic,
family karmic dust. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lineage
And
lines.
so
Absolutely. Because even fears can get transmuted or through, again, everything is energy. Emotion has an energy that also somehow science is going to pick up on this someday, because I don't have all the answers, but there's a connection to your biology that gets passed down in your DNA about certain things, certain traits, certain behaviors, certain fears that get passed along. So yes, absolutely. And soul families are a thing. Just because you're born into a biological family doesn't mean that you fit.
Yes.
I mean, in many ways, I inherently know that I don't fit into my biological family. With that being said, I also know that my ego has created and told myself that I can have more of a connection with my biological family if I choose to. But I also know that I am innately different from them, and that their language isn't necessarily my language, or how I feel things is not exactly how they feel things, and that's okay. But sometimes we get plopped into places to stir things up. How many people do you know are a black sheep of their family in our community?
Yeah, we got one.
Yes.
Right? So the other thing I know about souls too is that soul connection is so incredibly intense. Have you ever met somebody and you know that you know them? That's because your soul is connecting with their soul. Your light and their light. You're like, hey, we're back. Right? Because somehow in another life, they have known each other or have a connection in a soul family up in a different dimension. That's a beautiful, profound thing about being human, when we feel that and we're like, holy shit, you could get knocked over with a feather. That soul love and that soul connection is real. And again, it doesn't know time. It doesn't know religion. It doesn't know politics. And it certainly does not know gender. Souls only know souls. And souls innately are all about unconditional love and not fear. All the fear and the categories that we as humans put each other in is about making our human selves feel better so that we can justify who we are.
I've got a question. So it's nagging me and I need to go back and just.
That's okay. Ask it.
Okay. So you were mentioning about souls and babies and us being as women, making a decision to not allow a soul to enter in. Okay. So what makes it different with someone deciding to end? Do you think it's a divine appointment that someone,
just say it,
a murderer killing a human at the age of 20? Is there a difference between ending a life
as
a baby compared to ending a life at age 20?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, that was just
it's a great question. Souls don't die.
Okay.
They just move on.
So, but
the humanness that we have, so if you had a child who was in their 20s and was murdered, for example, or taken away from you in a car accident abruptly, right?
Yeah.
We have way more of an emotional connection to that physical human body
Yeah.
because that's who we are as humans.
Gotcha.
Soul just goes back home.
Yes. So in the physical realm, though, if there's a murderer, someone killed, let's just say, a drunk driver killed that child by accident, but his actions did cause it.
So the drunk driver's free will impacted another human being. Yes.
But in the physical realm, he needs to do the time in the physical realm for it. Do you think, though, on this, let's just say the little journey of that free will, do you think things are predestined?
I don't think anything happens coincidentally. The older I get, the more serendipitous everything is in my life.
Like it was time for that soul to come back. So he was just a vehicle that was used or was he predestined to always be that vehicle to end and allow that 21-year-old, whatever, to go back?
Humans, again, because we're emotional beings and we're designed to have emotional beings, to be emotional beings, we're also designed to have free will. If we didn't have free will, we wouldn't be able to make decisions. God has given us the ability, divine, source, God, universe, spirit, whoever you want to call it, has given us the ability to make decisions on our own. We have a brain that thinks. If we were not provided with a brain to make decisions, then everything would be predestined and very cookie cutter, and nobody would have the ability to make choices.
Yes. Okay.
I feel like if we knew the 100% answer to your question, Emily, that would defeat the whole purpose of why we're here and having this experience.
Yeah.
That's also, I also feel that that's true. I feel like that oneness energy has intention for us to become innately who we are using our gifting. Okay. That's what I know. I know that for sure. Right?
Yeah.
I could have decided to say, fuck you to being a medium. I could have decided to say, fuck you to being a psychic. Right. I could have said, fuck you to feeling people's emotions that's my free will. I have chosen to use my gifting from source. I have made that decision for me because it was in my best good and I knew it was in my best and highest good.
Yes.
So if I were to have gotten pregnant and ended a pregnancy, I would have made those decisions based on my circumstances and my free will to make those decisions based on what my wants and what my needs were in that moment.
Yes, that makes sense.
Now, in terms of the physical component, there is that biology because we're human and humans are designed to make babies. That's what we're designed to do, right? We are also designed to feel pleasure. So sex is a natural part of being human. I don't care what anybody says. It's a natural part. If we weren't created with all those receptors, sex would just be the practice of reproduction. It wouldn't have anything to do with pleasure. Why were we given the gift of pleasure? To feel, because it feels good, right? So sex is a big part, an emotional component of being human. It's also part of our sensory system and the makeup of our biology. So to me, it is natural. Sex to me doesn't mean that we always have to be in a place of reproduction. So when that happens, yes, is it happen for a reason? Yes, I do believe it happens for a reason. But I also know in this life and how I straddle between spirituality and humanness is a constant straddling to stay on the fence to find that balance for what I want and what I need in any given situation and what my emotions are telling me and how I'm feeling in my physical body. So for a woman to make that decision, to me, that feels like, what are her wants? What are her needs? And and she's been given the opportunity to have free will.
Yes.
And when law and religion and politics take that free will away, that's making her less of a human. She can't exert herself in that way with her God-given gift. And I also know that souls don't die. They just move on. They're transient beings. It's the fear that we've created around this issue that's made it political, that it doesn't have to be. Now, I don't think, for me personally, we're getting personal, I don't think I'd have the ability to do that, to end a pregnancy. But I'm also in a very different stage in my life. If I was 16 and pregnant, I might have felt very differently because my life would have been completely altered. Could I have gone and finished a bachelor's degree and gone on and getting a master's degree? Yeah, but it might have taken me double or triple the amount of time. And how was I going to feed myself or that child? I don't know all those human components, right? But there's a lot of human components that nobody wants to talk about. The soul doesn't care. It just moves on. The soul, that gift. And again, sometimes when we lose a baby, as a female or as a person who has a uterus who can carry a baby, we give that soul something human. Again, that straddling between both sides, humanness and spirituality. We give something back to that soul because it was incomplete, and or it gets called back. So the biology doesn't fit and we lose a pregnancy. And I received this information over and over and over again through a series of readings. For when I talk to women a lot, I'll say, you have 3 children? And they'll be like, no, I have 2. No, I'm seeing number 3. Did you have a miscarriage? Oh yeah, I did have a miscarriage. Okay, so you have 3 souls with you. That happens often. Again, the soul doesn't die. And if we can switch it from fuck you, I lost a baby, I'm in my feelings, I'm pissed off, I'm sad, I feel just completely torn up inside, to wait a second, hold up, press pause, please, and realize that we were chosen for that soul to enter this physical body and say thank you, it changes everything. Souls choose whose body they want to enter. I know that inherently. And so when a soul chooses, it's there for a reason, whether or not a component of the humanness that needs to be felt, to feel emotions, to feel a connection, or the soul is incomplete and needs something to be able to move on.
How does one
Souls don't die.
How does one deal with, in the human form, moving past another physical person killing themselves and choosing that their soul moves on too? I'm just curious.
Well, I also know too that some souls literally just need to go home. They're that damaged that they need to go home.
Yeah. I understand that too.
And if somebody chooses to end their life and to commit suicide, that is their free will because their pain is too much.
I believe that.
It's too much. And so sometimes I inherently know that it's okay for that to happen because that soul needs to leave that physical body because it hurts too much.
It's so wonderful that you are able to give this. You're a healer.
She is.
To be able to, I mean, because it does bring comfort. Loss.
It's all about the lens and the switching from the fuck you to the thank you. All of our human emotion and our free will gets caught up in the coulds, the woulds, the shoulds, and how what society has said we need to behave. But there's a whole other component of soul connection that doesn't give a shit about any of that.
I think it's time to take a break. Make sure to mark your calendars for January 22nd from 2 to 4. Metaphysical Mississippi, we're taking it on the road. We'll have a pop-up meetup in Starkville, Mississippi at Soul Flower Healing Art Studio. It'll be from 2 to 4 on a Sunday afternoon. Go to our website for more information. That's metaphysicalms.com. We'd love to see you there. Now back to the show. I was trying not to be political, but it was really,
But it doesn't, here's the thing, ladies, it doesn't have to be political. Soul,
Right.
language, and energy are completely different than the way that humans have designed to put everything in cozy boxes. That's what I inherently know. And what I know about soul is soul only knows unconditional love. That's it. Souls don't die. That's not political.
Mhm.
Made this political. We've made this an issue.
Mhm.
Yes. So
Fear has gotten tangled up in all of those pieces. Our humanness, our free will, and how we want to create people to be on our teams because we're afraid. So we're indoctrinating other people to get on our bandwagon to feed into the fear that we're feeling.
Mhm.
ooh, yeah. Yeah.
About a lot of different things,
Oh,
not just
About
abortion.
anything. Not just
Right.
abortion, about anything. Anything.
Anything.
Yes.
Anything.
Yes.
It's like even somebody selling something on TikTok to say, you need this, and if you don't have it, you're going to lose out. Well, that's fear kicking in because they've tried to make you feel fearful of something if you don't have something. So you go buy
Like,
it.
like, I better go get my breast cancer screening.
Right, because
I mean,
I want to
but
die.
yeah, that is another thing. Well, let's just live our life in fear that we're going to get cancer every day. Just fear, 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 fear. If I don't go get a checkup,
when you continuously stay in that fear space, what do you attract?
right?
Cancer.
Cancer.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Ooh, ooh. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Want to get back to her?
I'm gonna get back to.
Sorry.
Sorry,
That was a whole
I'm gonna
tangent.
get
But
back
the
to.
thing is though, but
No,
just
that was.
to be fair, that is a part of my practice. Feeling soul energy and that oneness and that unconditional love, touching that for even a hot second is my practice.
Yeah. And like I said, I had no problem leaving this in. I just didn't want to get, because I was feeling that is what you're dealing in. You're getting into those nitty-gritty subjects with, and your clients need to feel safe and protected.
Safe.
And I feel that you're open, and you may already detect it. Like you said, you're already tuned in. That's why I'd be afraid. Like, can you see into every dark secret that someone is hiding?
No, well, that's
You know what I
also a great
mean?
question. So the same way that like a therapist or a doctor follows a HIPAA,
Yeah.
that to protect your privacy, I also have my own spiritual HIPAA. So if I have a reading with a client, I never disclose who they are ever to anybody else. I keep that's private. I might share a story or something that's a teachable moment to give to other people in my practice, but I never disclose who the individual is. Your privacy and your trust is utmost important to my human self and to spirit.
Yes. No, that is good. So, there is, I didn't watch this show, and this is probably not really what you do, but I'm sure you have the capability to do it. But, like the ghost whisperer who, you got to get this, the dead souls that haven't figured out that they need to move on. Okay. Do you ever deal with that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I have helped with other medium friends to move souls along. Mostly souls that are trapped in between our dimension and what we've been told is heaven, the fifth dimension. It's because they might have died quickly, and their free will is holding on to wanting to stay alive and to not move on. See how free will interacts?
Yeah. Oh.
So sometimes they get stuck and wallow because they are pissed off that they got pulled.
Yeah.
That their soul was literally sucked up into the next dimension and they're not ready to leave, and or they're literally and then these shows make it seem like, oh, it can feel dark and it can feel heavy, because really when a soul is in that space, they're stuck in a pattern of fear. And so think about it, when you and I are afraid, we can get angry and we can say things we don't mean. It's because that soul is stuck in fear and needs help and reassurance that their fear can subside. So when they do go back up to what we know has been told is heaven and that fifth dimension and that place of unconditional love, that they will be accepted in full and that they can heal from their traumas.
Okay. Let's say I'm a person that that has the gifting that you have, is there school to train you on how to navigate this other than just learning, here and there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so part of the reason why I decided to move to Mississippi was because I knew I needed a spiritual teacher. And Jill Jackson was that person for me to help me understand more of the finer points of being a psychic and being a medium. My gifting as an emotional reader is my own. That's been my own practice. And that started with a teacher that I had outside of Boston. And she helped me understand some of these fundamental components of emotion. And then the rest of it has just been in my own practice, learning like the fuck you versus the thank yous.
Yes.
When I was working with my teacher in Boston, she'd always talk about the fuck yous that we say in our head all the time, normally as human beings, which is so normal. But to me, then that I took that to a different level, and the practice of fuck you versus thank you is a part of my practice. So teaching, and again, straddling that fence between spirituality and humanness. I do believe that humans need to have other humans who've been through these experiences and have these gifts to teach people how to do things ethically and morally soundly, and how to show up in the right way. The spiritual component that we have, that I always feel on the right side of my body, is the connection that I have with the teachings about the soul connection that we just talked about, and how that moves, and that souls don't die, right? And how when women have miscarriages, it's for a reason. We were chosen for that. So instead of being sad about it, we actually should be saying thank you for allowing me to be chosen to have that space and hold that space for that soul. So there is a space between, again, straddling that fence between both sides that we have to constantly be in check with. I have a spiritual teacher who I meet with monthly, and we work on things that she's teaching me. I still need that. That if a spiritual person is saying to you, well, I have everything I need. No, they don't. That's your biggest red flag. You need to walk away.
And it's not always
need to be in practice.
Because it's learning. Not just, yes, we may receive knowledge or wisdom from other people that we don't have, but the most important part is just the collaboration and sharing space with one another. That's the biggest teacher. Even in the Bible, it says that iron sharpens iron. We are social beings, and we grow from one another. And
humans need to be in contact with other humans, period. We need to be touched. We need to express our feelings.
And I want to say that when I stop learning and growing, and I know everything I need to know here, can I please leave?
Yes.
If I get that ascended, it's time to go to the next dimension, because
Well, and sometimes that's part of death, right? The soul knows that it's done everything it needs to do, and it's able to leave, and it's time to go. And so sometimes when we lose life abruptly, I believe that it's for a reason. But
and there are I would think if someone is naturally a medium, or they feel like they want to learn that, there's great teachers out there. Take your time, do your research,
absolutely
feel what feels with who you resonate with. And
or know that you can gain something from a teacher, but you don't have to align with their teachings in total, right? Yes. I think that's been a variable lesson for me as I've gone through my process. But I will also say too that I do feel innately that if you are a person who wants to move into more of your spiritual modalities, you must have some kind of a mentor. You cannot just walk through. I mean, I've had a couple of clients, one who was just giving people message all the time psychically. And I had to say, I just want you to check yourself and ask yourself, can I give a message? Mostly the answer is yes, but should you give somebody a message? That's something that I learned from a teacher of mine that keeps my ego in check. The same way that I don't go into a grocery store just because I can't receive message all the time doesn't mean I should deliver it. right? So these are checks and balances, which we also need to have in practice, that we need to learn from humans, right? From their experiences, to become wiser, to make better choices about how we disseminate the information that we receive from spirit.
Mm-hmm. And how much do you get, and where do you draw that line between well, the money issue that comes in, an exchange, not the money, but just the exchange of using your giftings, and then
That's another podcast.
the energy exchange.
But I will comment on that.
But of giving, just just like an artist.
Whole other podcast in and of itself. But what I will say is this: my gifting, your giftings, Krista's giftings, they are our own personal giftings. Same way that an athlete has a gifting and makes money in a life.
Yes.
The same way that a writer makes money in a life. We were given these giftings and we have the free will to choose how to use them, right?
Yes.
We can't, the thing is, we can't give all the time, because that depletes. So we need to be able to survive. And so there has to be some kind of exchange, whether it be a financial exchange and a payment, and or an exchange, an even exchange of services.
Yes.
And or maybe part of your mission is to just give. Like, I have a couple of clients who I meet with who I don't charge.
Yes.
Because I know that they need what I can offer, because I want to be of service.
Yeah.
But that's my choice and my free will.
Yes.
And a little bit of calling too.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all trying to learn how to, I'm feeling called to do this. I love this. This is something that I'm feeling a calling for. And I would do it for free, but I also have to, we have to survive. Like you said, we have to, in this physical life, and learning that balance between giving, because that's all we want to do is give. But, we also don't want to live in a box on the side of the street.
Correct.
But I would, but I don't want to.
But I wouldn't want you to do that either, because that would not be a fun human experience.
It would not. Okay, so
so back to your childhood.
So
yeah, sorry,
I'm sorry, I got off on.
That's okay.
Okay, so you work more in the field of people who are alive and want to move from the fuck yous to the thank yous. That's what you feel called to do.
That is a big part of my gifting, on top of reading. And my readings, and funny, this morning I even had a reading where we started off, and I had the ability to share angelic energy. And I do that kind of as my gift to my clients. And then that also helps me open up the channel between the two of us to be able to open that energetic field a little bit more. But during a reading, we can start psychically. It can be situational things that we break down. It can be diving deep into those fears, into somebody's like innate fears, and asking higher self in the physical body whether or not they want to be released. Sometimes they're not ready to be released, and we don't touch them. Another part of my practice is asking a lot of questions, so that I'm not going in and literally extracting somebody's emotion without their total human and spiritual permission. To me, that's like emotionally being raped, because you're not physically and or spiritually ready to release the emotion. You have to sit with it a little bit longer. So there's a lot of questions that I ask to be able to get there. Is it time? Can this be released? Can I pull it from you? I have the ability to pull it and release it, but if I don't have all the permissions, I don't touch it, because it's not my business.
So,
but then sometimes psychic stuff comes in, and the messages come in from loved ones that are really in tune with what we're saying psychically. So sometimes things can blend.
Crossovers.
So it's like you're not wanting to break through that yet until they're ready to open their door. But then you've got the great aunt over here saying, but she really needs to open that door, so I need you to mention it to her.
Right. And some people, I've had some clients get mad because I ask all the questions and the answers are no. And they're like, well, just fix it for me. No, that's your free will. You have to figure that out. Piece. I can give you some tools to use to loosen it up, to get ready to release it. But it is not my ethical or moral responsibility. It's a disservice to you if I'm not doing my checks and my balances to make sure that I am acting. My body is a vessel. That's all that it is. I have a channel. That's it. But my free will can hurt people unintentionally, but it can hurt people. I've had that happen to me before, and I don't want to have to happen to anybody else. So there's a whole series of questions that gets asked before extraction ever happens. But identifying the fear can be a big part of a huge part of the process. That's huge. It has to start with the identification so we can understand it, so that it can loosen its grip.
So if someone wants to, is this something that you do have to peel away like an onion, layers? Like if someone wants to work on a certain in a certain get past certain blocks in their life,
yeah,
it may not be solved in just one session.
No, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I was just saying.
Mm-mm. No, and our humanness wants it all to be taken away in one session. Healing happens over time.
If you, my experience as a Reiki practitioner, because I don't claim to go in and fix anything. I'm just a conduit for energy, for Reiki, and we let it flow how it flows. But if Sarah and I could go in there all day and cut cords and pull stuff, but if that person's not really ready to do the work or are really ready to address it or let it go, take ownership or responsibility, it's just going to come back.
It will come back. I agree.
It will come back, or it will manifest in a different way.
Yes,
maybe.
And the most profound impact for the clients that I serve are the ones who truly are ready to let it go. And when that happens and that can be pulled and extracted, holy shit, is that powerful? It's incredible. I literally I create in my mind's eye a container for each individual person, and it might be a different shape and it might be a different color. And I pull in the container and then I shoot it back up through my connection, almost like a big PVC pipe. Like you go to the bank and you put your money in, it sucks it up. That's how I see my PVC pipe above my head, is like it has that suction to pull it up or to pull it down. Pulling it down is giving that angelic energy or that Reiki energy. Pulling it back up is extracting that emotion and pulling it up to release it, and putting it back into the ethers and asking for it not to be stuck or compartmentalized only when it goes back into the universe. It's only compartmentalized in my physical body so that my physical body doesn't take on your negative emotion. I need to separate and use my body to help, but I also need to use my physical body to protect my own soul and my own emotions. So I've had to learn that over time too, that I have to contain it, and then I can shoot it up and ask for it to be released and go into the ethers as it should.
And I know I'll speak for myself, but as a practitioner myself, not only am I a client for other people, including Sarah, we are in constant self-care and it's we are the student too. We're constantly working on ourselves
constantly
to because that's the only way we can serve others is to
yep. And again, because we all these traumas, we have to reduce the trauma to let more light shine so that we can connect better to other human beings and to source to receive information, to be able to help somebody receive message or to heal. What a gift in and of itself to know that. I mean, just knowing that is huge. changes the whole ball game. When you realize that you are responsible for your emotions and your well-being and your own healing, and that when you stop blaming other people for your own shit and you own your trauma layers and your ego layers and you're ready to reduce them so that your light can shine bigger and bolder, because it's literally just being hidden by like trees on a leaves on a branches on a tree.
Ooh.
Holy cow, that's big.
Mhm.
That's so big. You know, and staying in our lane and realizing that we're responsible for ourselves and our own emotions and how other people's behavior might impact us. We don't have to own the emotion that comes with it. We make choices to do that.
And so I feel like it's okay to be patient with yourself when you're in the middle of that moment, or when there's an
Yes.
issue or a situation.
Yes.
Sometimes when we're right in the thick of it, we don't necessarily want to hear somebody say, well, you are choosing to feel that way.
Absolutely.
No, this is
Because
crap.
then your fuck yous are going to get really kicked up and you're ready to say, fuck you, right back out loud.
Yes.
Exactly. But to have the realization this is temporary, that it is truly like I can transmute this and I can not absorb this, and know I can have my boundaries. I can stand up for myself, but yet I can also, yes, I am responsible for how I feel, no matter what somebody else does to me.
Here's the cool thing too that I've learned in my 40s is that I don't have time, nor do I have any desire for bullshit relationships. So I don't want people in my life who are just going to tell me everything I want to hear. That doesn't help me evolve. It doesn't help me heal. It doesn't help me understand all of the variations of gray that are in this physical container of a human body. I want people to be real and authentic in this portion of my life. I want to feel love and give love authentically and not be afraid to say that to people. But I also know that some people I know I can't do that with, and some people I know that I can. And the people who I know I can are the ones that I really want to keep close to me and tell me, Sarah, you're in your fuck yous, get your shit together. Or Sarah, think about it from a different lens or a different perspective. You know, like I want those people to be in my life because they help me grow. So to your point, Krista, somebody might not be ready, you're right, and it might not be the right person. And or, you know, I've had people say to me, one of my dearest friends knows me like we are soul sisters through and through. And she'll say something to me and she goes, now, I love you, so I'm going to tell you this. Right. And I know that it's coming from a place of she does love me and care about me. My ego might be like, well, fuck you. That really hurt. But I also know at the end of the day, she has my highest good in her heart. And so what she's telling me, I get to discern, and my free will gets to kick in to decide how I want to move through what she's telling me. Do I want to address it? Do I not want to address it? Right. So
there's a chance she could be wrong, or maybe not wrong, but her perception or perspective could be different or not accurate. But if you know it's coming from a sincere love,
right,
you can take that. The best friends are the ones that you can disagree with.
Correct. And even if she says something to me that I feel like, no, that is wrong, there's still an air of it that is correct.
There's a reason it's coming up. Of it.
Correct. Right. And so where do I differentiate between knowing, no, that's not correct, but this strand of it does. And I can take what you're saying now, because she's feeling things from her human perspective, and sometimes her emotions get in the way. Right. So, you know, we have to take things as they come. And again, the people who are closest to us and love us the most, people who we trust the most, are the ones that we're going to sit back and say, yeah, thanks for telling me that. Thank you. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for recognizing that in me. Thank you for pointing that out to me so that I can grow and learn and discern.
Because sometimes even if their perspective or the things that they're calling you out on is not your truth or is not totally accurate, there's still a reason. Anytime that's happened to me, I've still gotten something from it. It's still been like
100% every time. And that's the difference between somebody who's really authentically wanting to do their work and can get to thank you versus somebody who wants to sit in their shit and continuously say, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awareness and authenticity and rawness are absolutely, we are capable of getting there, of being in those spaces, but we have to allow the fear to, and we get to choose who's on our team, right? In a human form, we get to choose I call it the family, friends and family.
Yeah.
The family, FRAMILY.
Those are the friends that you choose to be your
Correct.
not the
Correct.
logical.
A mentor in college said to me, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your family, so you better choose your friends really wisely.
So here you are growing up in upstate New York, and then
that was in upstate New York.
Then you went to
I started first grade in Massachusetts, outside of Boston.
Massachusetts, but then you came here to Mississippi. So you did mention you.
I love this story, so tell it, Sarah.
Yeah,
I've heard it.
It's a fun story to tell.
Please tell your story.
In order to find solitude, I would let all my laundry pile up clean. Like loads and loads and loads of laundry. And then I would retreat into my master bedroom and close the door and watch television.
I do that too.
Yeah. So, it was like leaving the husband and the 3 children and the 2 dogs downstairs and just being upstairs in my own space. So that was my guilty pleasure. I would let the laundry build up so I could watch television. And be productive at the same. That's how I could justify it. I was being productive, but I was also
while you watch TV.
Yeah, I was watching TV. So I was watching Fixer Upper of all things, and it was a commercial break. And my husband at the time, he worked in the nuclear power industry, and there was a nuclear power plant in Plymouth that was shutting down. And we knew this was coming. We had to make some decisions career-wise in terms of how we're going to continue to support our family. And I kept hearing, so let's just put that on pause. But as I was folding laundry in the commercial break, I heard the hearing, right, very loudly and profoundly with like just emphasis that I needed to move to the Deep South. And literally all my humanness could say was, fuck you. I'm not moving down that crazy place. Are you crazy? There's no way I'm moving to the Deep South. And I'll tell you that it kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And then my husband at the time said to me, I have, here is where I'm at. I've been looking for a job for X amount of, months or whatever. We'd have to take like an enormous pay cut. But if we move with the company and we move to any one of these locations, I get to maintain my salary and all these financial components, right? And so he listed all of the places, and it was like Nebraska, Michigan, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. And I said yes to Mississippi. And he literally looked at me and he was like, what? I said, yeah, no, we can go. Now, I hadn't told him at this point that I kept hearing a voice that said you need to move to the Deep South. I eventually did tell him that I heard a voice. And this was in my late 30s. And he also had already known that I had some interesting situations when buying houses and things like that, when we would move through spaces. And I knew if somebody had passed away in a house and would say, no, we're not moving there, or yes, we could do this, or
yeah.
So he was also learning to trust my intuition. He's like, really, you're okay with it? And I said, yes. So then I looked up spiritual teachers. I had no idea anything about Mississippi other than what I heard on the news and all the negative things that have happened in Mississippi, and historically what's happened in Mississippi, of oppression and racism and all the isms. So I actually found Jill Jackson's website, and I tell the story openly and honestly and say, okay, I found her website. She's going to be my teacher, and that's the end of it. And that's how we got down here, primarily for my husband's employer, but also because I said yes. And that's the part of the story that I couldn't exactly tell my family, who was all riled up and didn't understand why I was moving to the South and to follow my husband's career. No, actually, I was listening to my intuition, and I'm the one who said yes to moving to Mississippi. So that's how I got down here.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's where you and I met.
It is. It is.
That first
We
day
took
in
classes
class,
with
I
Jill,
remember.
and then Metaphysical Mississippi was happening to bring community together, who were people who were like-hearted. And that's how I met many of my friends, was through classes in Metaphysical Mississippi, and made connections with people that I normally wouldn't have known. It just gave us a space to be in that community, and to share our gifting, and to accept and appreciate others for their giftings.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Well, I want to ask you this. So were you, because I think you have mentioned this before, were you involved in a metaphysical type community in Massachusetts, or was it more
Yes.
just new
Yes, I
age
was.
or self-help, or what would you?
A little bit of all of that. The woman who was my mentor at the time was very, very gifted, connected spiritually. All of her giftings, and this is part of what the lessons that I learned from her, is that she got everything from spirit and didn't have that human spiritual balance down really well. And it's from any experience. It wasn't bad. I just learned a lot. I just learned about how I wanted to practice in my own space. So yes, it was a lot about like healing, a lot of emotional component, because her strongest gift was the emotional component. She's a healer. She was an emotional healer. It can just go in and pull stuff out and move on. So I did have that in a group of women that I was with for a couple of years. And even though I was in Mississippi, we met regularly on the phone. And we never quite knew what was going to happen, because our teacher was so connected, channeling, that she was able to, in the moment, tap in and say, this is what we're doing. It was really cool. Really cool. I met some really amazing women. I learned a lot about myself, a lot. I'm really grateful for all of that experience.
And so go ahead, Emily.
I was just going to say, these labels of medium or channeler, can you tell the future? Do you see flashes of someone's future? And I know that from experience of talking to other people this way, that free will does play into that. So the future will change based on the action of the person you're giving. But do you see flashes of future
timelines?
Sometimes I don't know if I see flashes. I just get like innate feelings, like to help somebody get someplace. Like I know what would be for their highest good. I inherently know what would be for their highest good. But part of what I need to discern in my giftings and finding that space between spirituality and being human and straddling that fence is, can I say something? Yeah, I can. It's usually yes. Should I say something?
Oh.
And if the answer is neutral, then I need to ask more questions. If the answer is no, then I'm out.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to interfere with somebody else's free will, and I don't want to interfere with somebody else's journey. I mean, if I went around saying those things to people all the time, I would be a martyr, number one. And number two, that's not my job. That's not my job to tell somebody what they should be doing. That's their free will. My free will is not my whole intent is never to put my free will on somebody else.
Oh.
Not even your wisdom either.
Sometimes no.
Because isn't it going to mean a whole lot more to someone if they come to that conclusion themselves? Like we can guide and we can let them, we can be a sounding board, a safe place for them to sort out, say their stuff. And if they ask questions, we give them feedback. If they come right out and ask, we can say, well, this is what guidance is telling me, but it is their decision. It is their journey. It's their path. We don't get any credit if it works out, and no blame if it doesn't, because it's theirs.
Well, and I tell people all the time when I'm reading for them, I say, I am reading in this moment right now. This energy and what I'm feeling could change an hour from now based on your emotions. It could change 2 hours from now from somebody else's free will impacting your free will. It could change tomorrow. It could change a week from now. It could stay the same. But right now, in this moment, this is what I'm receiving. Energy is constantly shifting. The only thing that we really know is that we're born and we die, and like we live and we have emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 4 things I can count on every day, as can any one of you, right? Everything
Mm-hmm.
else can be impacted at any point in time. So yes, I can say, yeah, hold out for that person to come around in a relationship. Or I can say, get the hell out now and go live your life. You know, sometimes people really want to know because they really do need that guidance. And when they really want that guidance, I do my checks. Can I say this? Should I say this? Should I say this softer?
Yeah.
You know, there's
Do you
an
find
art
that,
of language to saying
yeah,
something without like blowing their socks off and being so blunt and curt, but having the emotional connection to say, hey, look, what you're feeling is so human and so normal. And nothing that you're telling me right now, I've experienced on some level or another. And then sometimes I just, you know, and you don't know.
do you feel like a big part of what you're doing though is just, number one, giving them validation of things they already know,
Yes.
or also giving them the courage and the security to be okay with making a decision based on their
Yes. Did you
discernment?
just see? I just had the shivers and the shakes.
Yes.
Yes. I just got validation. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say you're an advisor.
Yes. In many ways. Yes. And when
More
people
than that, a
receive messages,
listener.
yes, a
But more
major
than that, a
listener.
listener. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
then
mean,
also,
yeah.
yes, because I have to listen to here and I have to listen to here and then I have to listen to here.
Yeah.
And run it through
Yes.
all the filters.
Yes. And ask all the questions. And if I don't know, that's also an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Well, I just want to say that I do read mostly over Zoom. I have had a couple of clients in Canada, mostly in the States, other than that. But I have read for individual people. I've read for families before. I even once had a reading and it was 2 sisters. And I said to them, now make sure you're the only 2 people in the room, please. And I think they thought that they didn't want to pay for there was a financial thing going on. I'm like, who else is in the room with you? And they're like, oh, our husbands are here. And I was like, because I was picking up on their energy and they had people who wanted to come in that were not connected to the 2 sisters. And I said, this is why I asked you to make sure it was just the 2 of you in the room, because I'm trying to discern how many people are showing up to the spiritual party. And now I have 4 humans and like 6 or 8 spiritual components that I need to filter
And we got an hour,
which is a lot of work.
Yes.
So I have done that, but I ask for that if we're doing a group, that we do that with a group with the intention of having a group so that I can and be in practice ahead of time and know what the wants and the needs are of the group. But my practice, like I said, is I have a lot of repeat clients who come back and just need guidance. The angelic energy that I'm able to share is a healing component for all clients who choose. I give people the option. It's a gift that I like to give to people. And sometimes the readings are specifically just mediumistic. Sometimes they are just psychic. Sometimes I'll say, I'm really sorry. I know that you signed up for a psychic reading, but your female presence over here on the right side of my body is like squawking and needs to give you a message. And maybe it's a quick message and then we go back to being psychic. So energy comes and it flows. Depending on the client, I know that I can ask the questions to either be back or forth or to just let it flow. Sometimes I get on with a client and I'll say, I have no idea where we're starting today. So tell me a little bit what's going on in your life. And then the download will start and then the session can continue. Gotcha. So in many ways, I've studied human development theory through my master's degree. I am not a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist, or I don't have any background in counseling per se. But a lot of the work that I have in my day job and a lot of the work that I do here is a lot about teaching and understanding spiritual life management skills and life management skills in and of itself. and to give people feedback about how to live their life in a more light-filled space, as I have lived through my own life. And Krista, we know this in our work, that when we're going through something, we attract the people who are going through something similar many times in our lives, so that we have the wisdom to be able to help them to move them forward in theirs. And that's the way that energy works.
Ooh, I love that.
So,
spiritual life management. I love that.
Yep. And that's something that I teach regularly. I teach about Auric field. I teach about cans and shoulds and wants and needs and fuck you and thank you. And, you know, how to tap into your wisdom, how to get yes, no answers in your body, how to ask your higher self questions, when and where are good spaces to receive information. That's just a regular part of my practice that I work with clients on. So
how can people contact you?
Great question. My website is sarahthepsychicmedium.com. I will tell you that email on there is a disaster. So I ask that people get on sarahthepsychicmedium@gmail.com. That's the best way to reach me by email. Also, my business line is 769-300-5152, and you can call or text on that number. You can also reach me on Facebook, either on my private page, my Sarah the Psychic Medium page, or Instagram, also my private, or Sarah the Psychic Medium on Instagram.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll add all that information in your bio, and it'll be available on our website, linked with this post about this interview and podcast. And we do offer a video version of this on our YouTube channel, Metaphysical MS, or it may be still searchable as Metaphysical Mississippi on YouTube, as well as on our podcast on our website, metaphysicalms.com. You can subscribe to all different platforms like Google Podcasts or the Apple iTunes podcast, whatever it's called. And
Apple, we're on Spotify, Stitcher, all the
I was going to start putting all the information on all these different platforms, but I think it's easier just to have the information on our website linked to it. So that's just me giving all the specific contact way to find you. Oh, again,
I feel like we will definitely need to have you back before too long. I feel like we could take several topics we talked about and spend a whole hour talking about those things, the different tools that you use in your practice, that you use with your clients, but also yourself. One thing in my awareness that I want to work on more in the next coming year, and you know me personally, so you're probably going to giggle when I say this, is my own spiritual hygiene and self-care. And
oh, absolutely. There is such a thing. It's like wearing a pair of shoes, you know, teaching clients how to move emotion out of the physical body in the places where it gets stuck is a really powerful self-help tool, just like brushing your teeth or putting on a pair of shoes to protect your feet. You're protecting your emotional, spiritual well-being through release of emotion that gets stuck in the physical body. So yes, it is a huge piece of taking care of yourself.
And we're human, and we get busy with the day-to-day stuff ourselves, and we have to be reminded to do the things that we tell our clients.
We do. And even as practitioners, sometimes we get caught up too much, and we also need to take pause and remind ourselves that we need to do that as well. So yes, that's what authentic friendships are for.
Thank you today for joining us again. Thank you, Sarah, for
thank you so much for the opportunity
and spending 2 hours with us. Maybe I'll get it edited down. Make sure to visit our website at metaphysicalms.com and go and subscribe to our Mashup newsletter. We'll see you next time. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent.